Hey everyone! Ready for a deep dive into something that could seriously change how you deal with relationships?
I'm excited for this one.
Me too. So we're tackling Mel Robbins' book, The Let Them Theory.
Oh, I love her work. She's so relatable.
Right. And she really gets to the heart of things. So in this deep dive, we'll break down how this theory works,
The science behind it,
the ancient wisdom it's connected to.
and most importantly, how you can actually use it in your own life.
Because what good is a theory if you can't put it into practice?
Exactly.
Okay, so Robbins kicks off the book with a story that I think a lot of us parents can relate to.
Uh-oh, this is going to be good.
It's prom night.
Ah, prom night.
Her son's prom night, to be exact. And, you can picture it.
Total chaos.
Trying to get everything
The
organized.
tux, the limo, the pictures.
Robbins is right there in the thick of it, trying to control every little detail.
So relatable. I think we've all been there in some way.
Totally. And it's in that moment, amidst all the prom night frenzy, that she has this big realization.
What happened?
She realizes that by trying to control everything, she's actually creating more stress for herself.
Ah, so she's making things harder than they need to be.
Exactly. And when she finally decides to let go, to stop micromanaging every aspect of her son's experience, she finds this incredible sense of peace.
It's amazing how letting go can actually bring more peace than holding on, isn't it?
It really is. And that experience becomes the foundation for her let them theory.
Okay, so let's break this down. What is the let them theory all about?
Well, it's a two-part equation. And the first part is, you guessed it, let them.
Let them. That sounds kind of hard.
It can be, because it's all about acknowledging that we can't actually control other people.
Wait, seriously, we can't.
Nope. We might think we can. We might try really hard. But ultimately, we can't control other people's thoughts, actions, or feelings.
So you're saying all that time I spent trying to change my partner, I was wasting my time.
Well, it's more about recognizing that real change comes from within.
Okay. I'm starting to see where this is going. But if we're letting go of trying to control others, what are we supposed to focus on?
That's where the second part of the equation comes in. And this is the empowering part. It's let me.
Okay, let me. I like the sound of that. What does it mean?
It's about shifting that focus inward. Instead of trying to control everyone and everything around us, we turn our attention to what we can control.
And what's that exactly?
Our own reactions and choices. No matter what's happening around us, we always have the power to choose how we respond.
Okay, so it's let them be them and let me be me.
You got it.
Sounds simple enough, but I have a feeling it's not always easy to put into practice.
You're right. It's definitely not always easy. But Robbins gives us a ton of practical examples and tools to help us apply this in our everyday lives.
Like, what kind of examples? I'm curious to see how this plays out in real-life situations.
Well, she talks about everything from dealing with those everyday annoyances like a slow cashier or a chatty passenger on a plane.
Ugh, those are the worst. But I don't see how letting them be helps me.
Well, think about it. Can you actually control how fast the cashier moves or make the person on the plane be quiet?
Or no, not really.
Exactly.
Mm.
You can control how you react to those situations.
So instead of getting all worked up, I can choose to just let it go.
You can choose to take a deep breath, practice acceptance, and shift your focus to something more positive. Maybe you listen to your favorite podcast or simply observe the world around you.
It's like choosing to find your own peace rather than letting those little things get to you.
Precisely. And the cool thing is, this isn't just some woo-woo feel-good stuff. Robbins backs it up with science.
Oh, really? Like what kind of science?
Well, for example, she references the work of Dr. Aditi Nerurkar.
I've heard of her. She's a stress expert, right?
Yes. And she talks a lot about how focusing on what you can control is one of the most effective strategies for managing stress.
Okay, I see the connection. The let me part of the theory is basically putting those stress reduction techniques into action.
Exactly. And this applies to so many areas of life, not just those little daily annoyances. Robbins dives into how let them theory can help with work frustrations, family drama.
Ooh, family drama. That's a big one.
It is. And even those social media comparisons that can leave us feeling totally inadequate.
Don't even get me started on social media. It's a breeding ground for comparison.
It really is. But we'll dive into all those juicy topics in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. This let them theory is already making me think differently.
That's the power of a good theory, right? It challenges our assumptions and opens up new possibilities.
Absolutely. And I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg.
You're right about that. Stay tuned as we explore the nitty-gritty of how to actually put this theory into practice in part 2.
I'm ready to get practical.
Me too. We'll unpack the tools, the techniques, and real-life examples that can help you embrace the let them, let me approach, and maybe even transform your relationships.
Awesome. So until then,
Let them be them, and let you be you.
sounds like a plan.
Welcome back. We're diving deeper into Mel Robbins's let them theory.
Ready to get practical.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We talked about that core idea of letting go of control.
Let them be them. Let me be me.
But it's one thing to understand it and another to actually do it.
Right. Especially when things get heated.
Yeah.
Like, how do I not react when someone's pushing my buttons?
Well, Robbins gives us some really helpful tools to use in those moments.
Okay. Like what? Spill the beans.
Okay, well, first there's the 5-second rule. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. Isn't that for like beating procrastination?
That's the one. It's about counting down from 5 to interrupt those automatic negative thoughts.
Oh, right. To kind of break out of that frozen state.
Exactly. And she applies it to relationships, too. So say you feel that urge to control a situation.
Like when my partner leaves their clothes on the floor again.
Instead of reacting right away, you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's like giving your brain a little time out.
Yeah. It creates space for a more intentional response.
So I can choose to, like, calmly ask them to pick up their clothes instead of blowing up.
Exactly. Robbins has so many stories about how this simple trick helped her.
I might have to try that. Okay, what else is in the toolbox?
Well, then there's the ABC loop, which I think is super useful when you want someone else to change their behavior.
Oh, we touched on that briefly in the last part. Can you remind me what A stands for?
A is for apologize and ask.
Apologize to the
Yeah.
person I want to change.
Yeah. You start by acknowledging any pressure you've put on them in the past. Like maybe you've nagged them about this behavior before.
Okay, makes sense. So I'm kind of owning my part in things.
Right. And then you ask open-ended questions to really try to understand their perspective.
Not like, why are you always so messy?
More like, what's making it hard to keep things tidy right now?
Ah, okay. So I'm actually trying to understand their side of it.
Yeah. Robbins even suggests using the 5 whys technique here. Keep asking why to get to the root of the issue.
So instead of lecturing, I'm listening. That takes the heat out of it for sure. What's B?
B is for back off.
Like literally walk away.
Well, more like give them space and time to process what you've talked about. Trust that they'll make their own choices.
Even if those choices aren't what I want.
That's the let them part in action. It can be tough, I know.
It's like resisting the urge to micromanage.
Right. It's like planting a seed and then letting it grow without constantly digging it up to check on it.
Okay, I get it. Trust the process.
Mm.
What about C? Does that stand for celebrate?
You got it. You celebrate any progress they make, no matter how small. A little encouragement can go a long way.
So I'm like their cheerleader, not their drill sergeant.
Exactly. And there's actually research on this, on motivational interviewing.
Motivational interviewing. What's that?
It's this approach that focuses on helping people find their own motivation for change.
So it's not about me forcing them to do something. It's about them wanting to do it themselves.
Exactly. And by celebrating their efforts, you're actually helping them build that intrinsic motivation.
That makes so much sense. But what if, even with all this, a relationship just isn't working? Like I've tried the ABC loop, the 5-second rule, and things still feel bad.
Well, that's where Robbins brings up the deal breaker decision.
Ooh, that sounds serious.
It is. It's about honestly assessing a situation and deciding if a particular issue is something you can live with or if it's a fundamental incompatibility.
So it's like figuring out your non-negotiables.
Right. What are your core values? What are you absolutely not willing to compromise on?
And if the other person doesn't align with those values, then
Then you have to make a choice. Sometimes letting go is actually the most loving thing you can do.
even if it hurts.
Even if it hurts. It's about recognizing that you always have a choice.
It's true. I can choose to stay and accept things as they are, or I can choose to walk away.
And that choice applies to all kinds of relationships. Romantic relationships, friendships, even family dynamics.
Speaking of romantic relationships, does Robbins talk about those specifically?
Oh, she does. She encourages a shift from a mindset of chasing love to choosing love.
Choosing love. I like the sound of that.
It means being clear about your values, knowing your worth, and not settling for anything less than a relationship that truly aligns with your needs.
So it's not about desperately seeking love. It's about being open to it while also knowing what you will and won't accept.
Exactly. And part of that is paying attention to red flags early on. Those little warning signs that something might not be right.
Like if someone constantly criticizes you or doesn't respect your boundaries.
Exactly. It's about trusting your gut instinct, that inner voice that tells you when something feels off.
Yeah, sometimes we ignore those signals, hoping things will change.
But often they're trying to tell us something important.
And what if, despite our best efforts, a relationship ends? What about heartbreak?
Robbins doesn't shy away from that either. She acknowledges that heartbreak is painful and it's okay to feel those emotions.
It's not about pretending you're not hurting.
Right. She suggests practical things like disconnecting from social media, spending time in nature, and surrounding yourself with supportive friends.
Those are all great ideas. It's about giving yourself the space and time to heal.
And to rediscover your own strength and resilience.
It's interesting. It seems like this let them philosophy applies not just to the people we're in relationships with, but also to ourselves.
Absolutely. Robbins talks about applying that same let them principle to our own inner critic.
Oh, wow, that's so true.
Yeah.
We can be so hard on ourselves.
I can. So instead of constantly judging and criticizing ourselves, we can choose to practice self-compassion.
It's like giving ourselves the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend.
Exactly. And this is especially important when we're navigating challenging relationships, like with family.
Oh, families can be tough. All that history, all those expectations.
I know, right? So Robbins introduces this idea of using your frame of reference to understand where the other person is coming from.
Frame of reference, what's that?
It's about trying to see the world through their eyes, considering their background, their experiences, even their fears.
So instead of just labeling them as difficult or wrong, I'm trying to understand why they act the way they do.
Exactly. Robbins even shares a story about her own mother initially disapproving of her husband.
Oh, no. Was she a monster-in-law?
Haha, no, not at all. But they just didn't see eye to eye at first. And by taking the time to understand her mother's perspective, her frame of reference, Robbins was able to shift the dynamic in their relationship.
Wow, that's powerful. So it's not about condoning bad behavior. It's about creating space for understanding.
And recognizing that we're all doing the best we can with what we know.
That's a good reminder. But what about those situations where someone we love is really struggling, like with addiction or mental health issues?
That can be so difficult to navigate. Robbins talks about how it's easy to fall into that savior complex.
That urge to fix them, to rescue them from themselves.
Right. But she stresses that we can't force someone to change or heal. They have to choose that for themselves.
So even though it's hard, we have to let them make their own choices.
And sometimes those choices lead to painful consequences. Robbins actually draws on the work of Dr. Robert Waldinger from the Harvard Study of Adult Development here.
That study is fascinating. They followed the same group of people for like 80 years, right?
That's the one. And one of the things they learned is that sometimes difficult experiences are actually the catalysts for growth.
So even though we want to protect our loved ones from pain, sometimes those painful experiences are what help them grow.
Exactly. It's about letting go of that need to control the situation and trusting that they have the strength to get through it.
And that takes a lot of faith, especially when you care about someone so much.
It does. And Robbins also acknowledges that sometimes we're the ones who need support in those situations. We can't pour from an empty cup.
That's a good point. It's important to take care of ourselves, too, so we can better support the people we love.
Right. And through all of these relationship dynamics, Robbins keeps circling back to the importance of self-love.
That seems to be a theme with her.
It is, and it makes sense. You can't truly let them be them until you've learned to let me be me.
That's a great way to put it. It's about embracing all parts of ourselves, the good and the bad, and treating ourselves with kindness.
Exactly. And that's the foundation for everything else. When we have a solid sense of self-worth, we can show up in our relationships with more confidence and authenticity.
And that's what allows us to truly let go of control and embrace the freedom of letting others be who they are.
Exactly. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore how this let me idea extends beyond individual growth and into a vision for a let me era, a whole new way of approaching relationships and creating a more fulfilling life.
And we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into the let them theory.
I am. Lots to unpack here. It's been quite a journey so far.
It really has. We've covered so much ground, from those everyday annoyances to family dynamics to romantic relationships.
And of course, the importance of letting ourselves be ourselves.
That let me part is key. It is. And Robbins takes it a step further in this last part of the book. She talks about a let me era.
A let me era. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What does that even mean? Like a whole era dedicated to letting ourselves be ourselves.
Pretty much. It's about taking everything we've learned, the let them, the let me, and applying it to create a more empowered way of living.
Okay, paint me a picture. What does that look like in practice?
Well, it's about shifting from constantly reacting to things outside of our control.
Which we do a lot of, right?
Oh yeah, we spend so much energy trying to manage the external world, trying to force things to go our way.
And it's exhausting.
It is. So the let me era is about mastering our inner world instead.
Oh, I like that. So it's not about ignoring what's happening around us. It's about choosing how we respond to it.
Exactly. And that's where true freedom comes from.
Robbins uses this analogy of the sky, We can't control the weather, the storms, the sunshine, the clouds.
But we can control how we navigate those changes, whether we choose to dance in the rain or seek shelter.
So the let me era is about becoming the captain of our own ship, so to speak.
I love that. It's about choosing our course, even when the seas are rough.
That sounds amazing, but also kind of daunting. Like, where do I even begin?
Well, Robbins breaks it down into practical steps. One of the simplest but most powerful tools she highlights is the power of asking ourselves empowering questions.
Empowering questions. Like, instead of why me, it's more like, what now?
Exactly. It's a subtle shift, but it makes a huge difference.
Because instead of dwelling on the problem, we're focusing on solutions.
Right. And Robbins gives all these examples of empowering questions we can ask ourselves in different situations.
Like, if you're feeling stuck in a rut, you might ask, what's one small step I can take today to move towards my goals?
Or if you're facing a challenge, you might ask, what can I learn from this experience?
I love that. It's about reframing those challenges as opportunities for growth.
And Robbins acknowledges that this isn't always easy. Sometimes our biggest obstacle is our own self-doubt.
Oh, tell me about it. That inner critic can be brutal.
It can. But the let me era is about recognizing those negative thoughts for what they are. Just thoughts. They don't have to control us.
It's about choosing to believe in ourselves, even when it feels hard.
Exactly. And Robbins reminds us that we don't have to do this alone. Having a supportive network of friends, family, or even a therapist can make a world of difference.
It's like having a cheering section for our let me journey.
I love that image because it really does take a village sometimes.
So it's not about becoming this isolated lone wolf who does everything on their own. It's about finding our people, those who lift us up and encourage us to be our best selves.
Exactly. And, at the end of the book, Robbins leaves us with this really powerful call to action.
Oh, yeah. What's up?
She challenges us to take all that energy we waste trying to control others and redirect it towards our own dreams, our own growth, our own happiness.
It's like saying, hey, you've got this one life. What are you going to do with it?
Exactly. And she leaves us with this question, which I think is a great one to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive.
Okay, hit me with it.
If you could truly let go of all those things you can't control and embrace the power of let me, what amazing things could you achieve in your life? What would be possible?
Wow, that's a big question. But it's also incredibly exciting, isn't it? To think about all the potential that opens up when we step into that let me space.
It is. It's like stepping into a whole new world of freedom and possibility.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty inspired right now.
Me too. And remember, this is just the starting point. Mel Robbins' book is packed with even more insights, stories, and practical tips that you can explore as you embark on your own Let Me journey.
We've just scratched the surface in our deep dive today, but hopefully this has sparked some new ideas and maybe even a little bit of that let me magic.
It's time to step into our power, embrace the freedom of letting go, and create a life that truly reflects who we are.
So go out there and make it happen. Your let me era awaits.
Cheers to that.
That's it for our deep dive into the let them theory. We hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, keep those empowering questions flowing.